At the age of 24, I, a woman, did not ask my older sister, who is 26, to be my maid of honor. I made the decision to have only one bridesmaid. I offered this role to my best friend, who meant more to me than my own sister. Having my sister participate in the wedding ceremony as a bridesmaid was never part of my plans. My chosen one and I got engaged in 2020. As we began our life together, we found it challenging to find common activities amidst circumstances that forced us to stay at home. These months gave me time to reflect. However, I still couldn't envision asking my sister to take an active role in the wedding. There were two key issues in my family: my sister, who was always a favorite, and our parents, who couldn't imagine a wedding without her prominent presence. My sister has always held a special place in the family hierarchy. From childhood, her beauty was admired. She participated in children's modeling shows, and her appearance always remained the center of attention. Thanks to her charm, she easily drew attention to herself, while I remained in the shadows like an ugly duckling. Her sister was able to gracefully emphasize the difference between us, giving advice on how to improve my appearance or commenting on my need for cosmetics to achieve attractiveness. It pleased her that she and I didn't look alike. The beginning of my affair with my future fiancé occurred in high school. Our first meeting took place at a party I happened to attend by chance. He approached me and started flirting, which was unexpected and pleasant. However, when his sister tried to grab his attention, claiming that he deserved a more attractive companion, he didn't succumb to her charms. We left together that evening, and our hearts have belonged to each other ever since. When my chosen one first came to my home for Christmas in 2019, my sister brought up the wedding, joking that it wasn't too late to change my mind. I felt like there was seriousness behind her words. Despite everything that has happened, my parents are convinced that we should be close and that I have an obligation to honor my sister. Adding to the complexity was the diagnosis my sister received 4 months ago: cancer. The treatment has had an impact on her appearance, particularly her hair, as well as other health complications. It brought a wave of sympathy and support from those around her, eager to help her feel as beautiful as before. At this point, my parents felt that I would need to support my sister at the wedding so that she could shine. However, I didn't want her presence to take over the spotlight. When my parents brought up the issue of bridesmaids a few weeks ago, I openly stated that I planned to invite my best friend. Not realizing what my parents were getting at, I was surprised when they suggested making my sister my only bridesmaid. They convinced me that my best friend should understand and accept this decision. The next day, my sister expressed her desire to be by my side on my wedding day, emphasizing our sisterly bond. She also mentioned the uncertainty of her future, making this moment especially meaningful to her. Despite this, I stood my ground, rejecting the idea of her involvement as a bridesmaid. My determination caused a wave of misunderstanding and judgment from my family, which made me feel like an outcast and encouraged me to question my own choices. You shouldn't call yourself an idiot. Your sister has pressured you throughout your life, undermining your confidence and even trying to get your partner's attention. Of course, it's hard to know about her illness, but that doesn't take away from the difficulties she's caused you. The fact that she was offered an invitation to the wedding is already a grand gesture. If your parents want to throw a party to cheer her up, they can do so separately. You can explain to your family that including your sister as a bridesmaid may be unnecessarily stressful for her in her current state. You want her to focus on her own well-being without overburdening herself with unnecessary responsibilities. Thus, you don't see her as a possible bridesmaid, even a sole bridesmaid, as you wish the best for her. Maybe there will be another role for her in the wedding ceremony if she feels capable of it. Nevertheless, your thinking about the possibility of organizing the wedding secretly suggests a desire to avoid unnecessary pressure and attention by focusing on personal happiness among the closest people. This decision may be a reaction to a desire to ensure that you and your partner have a peaceful and joyful day without the distraction of other people's expectations. As a result, you might consider the idea of allowing your sister to experience the joy of the wedding day in a different way, giving her an important role that doesn't require a lot of stress on her part. However, the idea of eloping and having a secret wedding reflects your desire to maintain privacy and avoid conflicts that arise around the golden child in the family. Next story. At the age of 27, I was faced with a situation where my spouse, also 27 years old, was often crying because of our financial difficulties. She decided to leave her last job, where conditions were extremely challenging, working 3 days a week for 18 hours at a salary of $600. This decision was driven by a desire to avoid undue stress. Our joint mortgage was $370,000, and our savings were beginning to dwindle. I expressed support for her decision to quit her job, but on the condition that she find a new job, even if it paid less. However, 3 months after quitting, she still hadn't found a new job, which forced me to pick up extra shifts to cover our expenses. Because of the increasing financial pressure, I began to insist that she needed to be employed, but my requests were only met with excuses. I explained that without her income, we would have to cut our expenses significantly, eliminating all but the bare essentials. After another week of fruitless job searching, I couldn't help but express my displeasure at her inaction. While I was working without rest, she was not taking the initiative even to keep the house in order. At one point, noticing her upset state, I tried to find out the reason. She expressed a desire to spend more time with me, to which I replied that I could pay more attention to her if she contributed to our family budget. This conversation turned into an argument in which I expressed my disappointment that the financial burden fell solely on my shoulders. She claimed that she had applied for several jobs but had not completed the necessary paperwork verification procedures. As a result, in a state of anger, I spoke harshly about our financial situation and the future of our relationship. It's not your fault. In a situation where you have to work stressful overtime, it's important to remember that quitting your job is not an option for you. This puts you at a disadvantage compared to your spouse who chose to quit her job when faced with stress. She seems indifferent to your situation, which raises questions about the fairness of your relationship. Despite her reluctance to give the usual divorce advice, there may be no other options in this situation. Her complaints about the lack of time together because of your job only emphasize her desire to maintain her lifestyle at your expense. Her tears may not be a reaction to your actions so much as a manipulative ploy to distract you from your work issues. It appears that she has no sincere intention of looking for a job, and her goal is to get you to stop asking uncomfortable questions or to wait until the marriage has lasted long enough to reap the benefits in the event of a divorce. The advice to divorce as soon as possible may seem drastic, but delaying can only deepen the financial hole. It is also advisable to avoid intimacy to prevent possible pregnancy-related manipulation. Anger outbursts and yelling at your spouse are unacceptable and indicate the need to improve communication between you. If her behavior has changed recently, a mental health issue is worth considering. Leaving work due to stress and difficulty keeping a house in order may be signals of serious problems that need attention and possibly professional help. Update: we don't have children, nor do we have pets. Our house doesn't have its own yard. We have a dishwasher and washing machine, and the floors in the house are hard and easy to maintain. It only takes me 2 hours on the weekend to get everything in order. However, my spouse seems unable to accomplish these tasks or finds excuses, like doing laundry, to avoid other household chores. Moreover, I feel that I am facing financial pressure because I am against us spending money on luxury items at a time when we need to save money. In addition, my spouse has been refusing intimacy for the past 6 months, which precludes the possibility of children. I respect her decision, although I feel frustrated with the situation. After much deliberation, I have come to the decision to divorce. Now I want to tell a different story. At my age of 27, as a male, I am facing unusual relationships within my family, especially with my father and brother. The main reason for this is their perception that my profession is not serious, because I work as a makeup artist. Although someone may ask about my sexual orientation, I will answer immediately. I am neither homosexual nor transgender. My passion for makeup is simply a love for the art that I have been attracted to since I was a teenager. The desire to become a makeup artist or find myself in this field has been with me for a long time. My relationship with my father, brother, and even my mother has been marred by constant ridicule and nasty comments about my choices. At the age of 17, I faced a particularly painful incident when my brother intentionally broke my MAC makeup kit that I had been saving up for while working casual part-time jobs. Instead of making amends, my father praised my brother and replaced my kit with cheaper, lower-quality counterparts, claiming they were the same thing. After I turned 18, I reduced communication with my family to a minimum, limiting it to holidays and birthdays. I was convinced that regular get-togethers would only make things worse, as my career was becoming an object of ridicule even during the infrequent visits, which was extremely hard to bear. Recently, in honor of my father's birthday, I decided to visit home in the company of my girlfriend who insisted on meeting my family. Given the seriousness of our relationship, it seemed important to me that she meet my family too. As expected, the meeting was marred by bullying and rude comments about my work, accompanied by misogynistic remarks. The situation reached a climax when my brother suggested I change careers, claiming that makeup would not bring me success. Comparing me to a friend who is a sugar seller, he hinted that trading would be a more worthy occupation. I responded to him by demanding that he shut up because, unlike him, I do not shirk my responsibility to my father. He did not hesitate to criticize my profession, even though he had been unemployed for 2 years and had shown no desire to look for work. My brother overstepped his bounds by trying to hit me, but I managed to avoid conflict. Had it not been for the intervention of my father and a friend, the police would probably have been called. After that, I stopped all communication with them. My father demanded an apology, but I flatly refused, saying that he should not expect me back. This upset my girlfriend, who felt that I should not have been harsh with my brother. I now question the appropriateness of my actions, as those around me argue that I could have just ignored what was happening, considering me rash in my judgment. It is important to mention that my mother left my father and I when I was only 3 years old, and we never knew where she was. I grew up with the realization that I didn't have a mother, but that doesn't make me unreasonable. Alas, your family creates tension. It's best to avoid contact with them for a while. Remove yourself from this situation, for it only hurts. Your family makes me dislike you. Focus on your own achievements, develop your skills. Don't waste your thoughts on people who could be called unintelligent. Postpone any family gatherings, including birthdays and holidays, for 5 years. Instead, surround yourself with a partner and trusted friends. And don't feel guilty about it. Only return to your family circle when they start respecting your boundaries and relationships. Your partner has witnessed inappropriate remarks about you, indicating discrimination and resentment. She has advised you to take action to change the situation. I disagree with the suggestion to ignore your partner's initial visit and assessment of the situation. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The real issues lie deeper. Your partner was trying to smooth things over, perhaps not realizing the depth of the problem. It's worth rethinking the relationship if it leads to constant excuses for family misbehavior. The question is why those around the victim are inclined to forgive instead of demanding that the aggressor change behavior. At the mention of your brother who does not have a stable job, his criticism seems inappropriate. You, unlike him, earn an honest living, have a legitimate lifestyle. Your position and criticism of him is justified because it is based on the principles of honesty and fairness. My next story. My mom had a quarrel with her parents. I am now 25 years old. At that time, I was 10. The conflict arose because of the peculiarities of family relations and desires of its members. The problem was about the preferences in the distribution of attention between the members of the blended family. My mom insisted that my grandparents give time not only to me alone. She didn't object to their socializing with my half-sisters or our shared leisure time together. In her eyes, exclusive attention to me gave the impression to my stepsisters that they were less important despite the opportunity to have individual time with my grandparents. I expressed to my mother my pleasure in spending time with my grandparents while emphasizing my desire to avoid my stepsisters. This only strengthened my mom's resolve to end my individual meetings with my grandparents. Despite their desire to continue our meetings, my mom forbade me from seeing them. Eventually, we stopped communicating, which was not my choice, for the next 8 years. My mom often discussed with me the significance of a blended family versus the rest of the family. She relentlessly reminded me that my half-sisters were my sisters too, and I should not use the word stepsister for them. She emphasized that I should not want a family experience that excludes them because they are part of our family. Being 5 months older than them, I should, in her opinion, be a big brother to them, showing love and support. Mom pointed out that my grandparents' attitude of allowing separate time with me was not acceptable. She asked me to avoid mentioning my grandparents or other members of our extended family in the presence of my stepsisters. After conflict with her own siblings, who felt that Mom acted too harshly in limiting my contact with my grandparents, Mom severed her relationship with them. She perceived their support of our parents as a betrayal. Despite my mom's best efforts to convince me of her point of view, I continued to long for a large family and did not view my stepsisters as full sisters. There was no animosity between us, but there was no closeness either. They were no closer to me than friends. This changed when I went to college. This allowed me to reconnect with my relatives, with whom we became even closer than before. My mom didn't approve of this, but I was no longer dependent on her opinion. In this context, an episode occurred when my grandparents organized a family vacation for the summer. I, as well as other family members, happily agreed to join, except for my mom, who was not invited. My aunt shared her excitement about the upcoming vacation on Facebook. My mom seems to continue to follow her siblings online, even though she has deleted them from her Facebook friends. This became apparent after she reacted to one of the posts. She experienced a great deal of upset upon learning about it and approached me to reconsider her plans. Mom insisted that I think about my stepsisters and put the family's interests first. 2 days later, I found out that my stepsisters were really upset. The older one expressed her disappointment to me, saying that it hurt her to see me prioritizing socializing with other relatives over them. They emphasized that they consider me their brother, which made me realize the depth of their feelings. Even after 16 years of living together as part of our blended family, I still tended to be closer to my biological family than to my half-sisters, which prompted me to reflect on my actions. On the one hand, the stepsister's story begins with a sad backstory. Their father lost his spouse before she was born. Despite having a maternal line of kinship, communication with her and her family was impossible. The mother's family was unwilling to maintain contact. The situation was complicated by the lack of understanding between the relatives. It's not your fault. Had it not been for the circumstances caused by their mother's actions, the stepsisters could have spent years searching for and reuniting with distant relatives. This process could have turned into a meaningful event that brought the entire extended family together. Your mother tried to impose her opinion on those around her, which rarely leads to the desired results. It is important to convey to your sisters that the difficulties your mom created are not your responsibility. This conflict is not the obstacle that will cause you to abandon all attempts to mend the relationship. Yes, mom has made things difficult for your stepsisters by wanting them to spend time with their grandparents separately from you. It's hard to grasp the logic that prompted her to take this action. It's surprising that it's not clear to many that attempts to impose a relationship are doomed to failure. Such actions often lead to the opposite of the expected result. I have to smile as I imagine your mother arguing in front of a 25-year-old man that he has no right to go on vacation with his family. Such statements seem ridiculous. Don't let these words stop you. Your mom never seems to care much about your worries. She only cares about your behavior. But dear friend, take this journey. You will find a sense of freedom and happiness with those who truly appreciate you. Mom's attempts to set you on a course for a new family seem completely inappropriate. A story that really surprised me. At the age of 31, I, a woman, was faced with the sudden inheritance of a substantial amount of money after the loss of my parents. Being the youngest among my siblings, I faced pressure from my older relatives to divide the inheritance equally. Doubts gripped me, for it was on my shoulders to take care of my parents in their last years. I put aside my ambitions and personal aspirations while my siblings built careers and lived their lives away from home. My siblings, who left to pursue education and successful careers, only visited us occasionally, leaving it to me to take care of my parents' deteriorating health. I became the primary caregiver, taking over the management of my parents' medical appointments and daily needs, as well as providing them with the emotional support they needed. My siblings, although they came over from time to time, did not actively participate in my parents' care, take on responsibilities, or provide meaningful financial assistance. Nevertheless, after the passing of my parents, they expressed an expectation of an equal division of the inheritance, arguing on the grounds of family ties. I, on the other hand, remembering their sacrifices and care, am convinced that I deserve a larger share of the inheritance. It saddens me that my siblings' interest in family matters arose just when financial issues came into play. Attempts to explain my position have led to accusations of selfishness and greed from relatives convinced that my parents wanted an equal division of the inheritance, regardless of everyone's contribution in their later years. This situation makes me feel guilty and resentful at the same time, as I can't get rid of the idea that my siblings are trying to take advantage of me and the status quo. You are absolutely not an idiot. If your parents really wanted the siblings to inherit equally, they would have drafted wills accordingly. The lack of such instructions makes it clear that your parents wish to leave you everything, appreciating your sacrifices to care for them. Such care is not only hard work, but a constant challenge that requires endless effort. Your siblings, who readily gave you the full responsibility of caring for your parents, obviously expected that the inheritance would go to them regardless of their contribution. Your refusal to recognize yourself as a greedy or selfish person in this context is justified. Your relatives, who were unwilling to share the burden of care with you, now want to divide the inheritance, ignoring your efforts and sacrifices. Guardianship is a challenging experience that involves mental and physical strain. Single-handedly looking after two people, caring for them in terms of effort and financial investment, is a task that takes a lot of energy. Meanwhile, the siblings who rarely visited their parents not only offered you no respite, but actively built their lives and careers, directly benefiting from it. This inheritance becomes the reward for your sacrifices. Situations like yours convince me of the benefits of being an only child. Yes, all the burden will fall on my shoulders, but I won't have to contend with the selfishness and claims of relatives after all the work I've done. I am always in favor of equal division of inheritance when it is truly fair. However, when siblings believe they are entitled to their share solely on the basis of consanguinity, while deliberately refusing to participate in the care of their parents, it raises doubts about their motives.